People are far too soft-spoken when it comes to the toxic injectables. Nearly 500,000 adverse reactions, injuries and deaths have been reported to the UK MHRA, an agency that receives 86% of its funding from Big Pharma. Over 18,000 people in the UK have applied for vaccine damage payments, including for the death of a loved one. Over 10,000 have been denied. Only 24 million has been paid out to just over 200 people so far, and not from the pockets of those responsible, but from the taxpayers, as if that settles the score. But behind closed doors, the government quietly set aside 1.7 billion, enough to pay 14,000 victims. Again, taxpayer money prepared in secret while you were all told the COVID jabs were 100% safe and effective. They knew, they planned, they lied, and people died. The most revolting part is the government is paying more to the consultants who assess the damage claims than to the injured themselves or to the bereaved loved ones. Let that sink in. And the true toll of damage from these jabs is far worse. Only 2 to 10% of adverse drug reactions are ever reported. That means the real numbers may look like this. 20 million potential adverse reactions from the COVID jabs, 50 million serious, including permanent disabilities, 150,000 dead. That's the turbo cancers. That's what died suddenly means. That's why sports people are dropping dead on the pitch. That's why children of 8 years old are being diagnosed with aggressive stage 4 cancers. It's the damn COVID jabs, and it's a fucking crime scene. What enrages me beyond words is that the NHS is still injecting infants as young as 6 months old, babies with compromised immune systems or neurodisabilities, under the claim that it will protect them from the severe effects of COVID-19, which, by the way, if you don't believe COVID is a complete fraud, has a 99.89% survival rate, disproportionately affecting the elderly. So vulnerable children are being given a gene therapy linked to 1,291 distinct adverse events, including myocarditis, pericarditis, Guillain-Barré syndrome, Bell's palsy, and death. This isn't just wrong, it's horrific, and it's still happening. And we already know this was never about public health. These injections and the mandates were always political and part of a sinister plot. Professor Chris Whitty even admitted as much during the tokenistic sham of a COVID inquiry. And still, so-called medical freedom doctors and scientists try to walk the line, to stay palatable enough for conference invites, media appearances, and private dinners. They want partial truth with a side of clout. They measure their words carefully, just enough to stay welcome on Ofcom regulated programming. Meanwhile, 5 years have passed. And some of us knew, even before the rollout, that harm was coming, that death was coming. And so did the government, and so did the pharmaceutical companies, so did the unelected, bureaucratic World Health Organization, and the overlords at the World Economic Forum. And so did many of these so-called experts, now calling for more tests, more data, more waiting. They had the data. You don't beg for an investigation when the blood is still fresh on the floor. We don't need more polished panels. We don't need more platitudes from stage lights. We need justice. Who has stood for the harmed? Who has fought for the injured, the dead, the children, the silence and the families? I did, and some of you did. Mostly, it was the people who refused the jab from the very beginning, the ones they tried the hardest to silence. Not your government, not your GP, not the NHS, people like me, who warned, who resisted, and who continue to fight for truth and justice. And when I'm asked, should there be amnesty, I say this: not at the cost of justice. For crimes against humanity, you plead your case in court. You face the law, then if you choose, you plead to God. But I will not forget. And forgiveness? I ask myself that question every day, and I wish I could say yes, but I don't know that I ever can. How can anyone speak of forgiveness while the mass murder and maiming of infants from just 6 months old continues? They are still doing it, they are still lying, and people are still trusting them. I want justice, I want full accountability, and at the very least I want to see those responsible face long, unforgiving prison sentences where they can reflect on the lives that they have shattered. People of faith tell me that justice belongs to God, that I must forgive, that never forget and never forgive is too harsh of a phrase. But how do you forgive Fauci, Gates, Hancock, Starmer, Johnson, Whitty, Vallance, Rain, Morgan, and other names who will only become known once the trials begin? There must be justice, there must be accountability, and in my heart, there is no amnesty. Yet millions still can't face it, still trapped in cognitive dissonance. Imagine being a doctor, jabbed yourself, slowly realising what you encouraged in your patients, what you were complicit in. How do you face that truth? Because this isn't just about politicians, corporations, unelected bureaucrats and pharma executives. It's about the everyday enablers, the doctors, nurses and pharmacists who lined up for a paycheck. Some trained in a single day to inject experimental gene therapy into the arms of trusting people. That's not a mistake, that's complicity. What will it take? Do they need to drop a literal bomb on your home and blow your family to pieces for you to believe they would intentionally harm you? Most people are literally watching genocide unfold in real time on TV. Babies burning to death, being blown to pieces. And because it's happening in a distant land, not on your own doorstep, they look away. Or worse, many have been numbed to the point of apathy or twisted enough to cheer it on. It sickens me to my core. So I suppose it's more acceptable when it's carried out quietly, disguised in a white coat, inside a sterile clinic, with death delivered through a needle at your GP practice. I am done asking for inquiries. I am done waiting for more studies, for more data, more government-sanctioned investigations. They had the data, they did it anyway, and it was never an accident. It was an operation, and yes, it is a fucking crime scene. And when I hear alleged medical freedom advocates still hedging, still pretending we don't really know why people are dying, I call it what it is: bullshit. These jabs weren't unsafe and ineffective. They were highly effective at doing what they were meant to do, what they were designed to do, and they're still doing it. And still, people waiting for answers, for saviours for the next election, waiting for someone else to say what the truth is. But there is more darkness in this world than many are willing to see. And if justice belongs to God, then why is forgiveness my job? Let me be clear, I am capable of forgiveness. I was raised in the Christian tradition. I know the values and I still carry them. Even if my own faith has grown weathered, frayed at the edges, whose faith wouldn't be shaken after watching this evil unfold? But I've walked with integrity. I've spoken the truth when it wasn't safe, when it wasn't trendy to be a dissenting voice. I've tried to stop the harm before it began. I've stood with the injured and the bereaved. I've given a voice to the silenced, and I still do. I can forgive, but not like this, not without truth, not without justice, and not without accountability. Because for these crimes against humanity, forgiveness must be sought. There must be a full admission of guilt through real consequences. And honestly, can you imagine Johnson, Fauci, Hancock, or Gates asking for forgiveness? I want justice here, now, in this life, because forgiveness follows remorse, not ongoing denial and deceit, silence and lies, and more death and destruction. This is why I began my law degree. This is why I speak with urgency and conviction. I don't just protest, I don't just campaign, I don't just post online. I am pouring my heart and soul into becoming someone who can deliver justice and not just demand it. I turned 40 this year and I've spent half a decade in this fight. And I will fight for truth and justice until my final breath, because silence serves the oppressor, and I will never be silent. And I will never water down the truth to make myself more palatable. If the truth I speak makes you uncomfortable, so be it. Choke on it. Because if you value followers, fame, money, or mainstream approval over truth, then you are part of the problem.